overall, KAs haven't been doing a good job to increase their own visibility. So it's common in the industry that KAs are seen just monkey clickers or something, the special people who write something that's always failed. What helps me to start this conversation with leadership and several companies is lost money.
Hey, Yulia,
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining How They Test. Really excited to get to chat with you today. Could you share, just as a quick intro, your name, your current position, and what company you've been working at, just to get rolling?
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. I'm Yulia, and I'm a head of KA in Gainbridge. And Gainbridge is a sort of a startup-like subsidiary of a big company that is called Group 171. I've been in KA for about 15 years now, and I worked at small companies, big companies like Amazon, offshore, onshore, in bed, and separate. I think I've seen it all, frankly. So I'm really curious to talk about it and to see what might be interesting.
What does a day in the life of the head of QA at Gainbridge look like these days?
One is working more on the front-end side of a customer portal, and the second team works on backend and public APIs. And right now, when the work is done partially, they're moving on another portal that we have. So we're using Playwright and TypeScript for everything right now. We plan to create a mobile app next year, and that means Playwright will not work, unfortunately. So we will use Appium as everybody else. The work is pretty standard. I think we have product managers, we have developers leads, devs, design, and QAs who work in collaboration, start with a new feature. We have brainstorms when people can bring up any ideas or questions, and we have hackathons so people can actually work on some prototypes, and then some of that goes live.
Have you had the investment in test automation tooling, like you mentioned with Playwright? Has that been since the get-go, or is that something that you guys have worked on more recently to get going?
It was from the beginning. So when I joined the company, it was practically bare ground. One of the team didn't have a repo yet. So it was really minimal. The website was just built and was pretty ugly. When I joined, we started to think about the total rebuild from the scratch. And the test cases were written somewhere in local documentation. So I started to think what we can use for test repo. So Excel wouldn't work for various reasons, even though it's still popular, I know. I did the research, but some other subsidiaries in our company already use Testmo. I did some feature comparison, like TestRail, for example, was pretty popular at the time. And Testmo was kind of close, maybe, but since it was fresh, without some kind of growing issues that TestRail has.
Totally appreciate that. I'm curious how your team has time to document test cases when there's only a few QAs with such a fast-moving product. What does the QA workflow look like in order to keep up with new features that the teams are building across those various apps and services?
Well, I worked in different ways. I worked in automation first, when there are only automation case and there's no test plan, test case is not written besides automation. The problem with that is that after a while, you don't know what's covered. To write a new test took a couple hours for me, but to find the right place to put it in took 2 to 3 days. Because you didn't just drop a new test, right? You need to integrate it. You need to see maybe there's already something close, so you can just add another cert, and you don't need a separate test. And after a while, after a couple of years, all this test base will require a lot of maintenance. And I've seen situation when it was a really scary, giant Java repo that needed to be decomposed and rewritten, but nobody could do it because it's like a hell ton of work, which is not feature delivery. So I prefer the way when we have proper requirements. So QAs work on requirements with analysts or product managers. And from the requirements, they can create a test plan, and then they can create test cases, manual. And based on manual, they can create automation. In that case, you understand what impact your automation does, and you can trace back to the company KPIs or any kind of business value that was mentioned in the requirements. So if you skip manual test creation, which takes time and maintaining it's no fun, but without it, you're losing the opportunity to present key value. And actually, key visibility is a popular problem. Why companies cut QAs? I was laid off from Amazon, and they laid off the entire department. So all QAs were just wiped off. The performance was not even involved, considered. There were people who were promoted to pretty senior level, and they were let go as well. Because whoever was responsible for that decision didn't know the value that QA bring, and nobody could vouch for that. So visibility is an issue, a lot. Here in Gainbridge, I work a lot to bring it up, to show what QA is doing, how is it impacting work, and how valuable manual testing is. So all my people do manual testing. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates manual testing. We know that. And that motivates them to automate. But they automate it based on kind of data-driven decision. And they can see, okay, this is the test cases we need to run during regression. This is the part is automated. Okay, it takes me 2 days to go manually through the rest of the stuff. I hate it. Can we do something to automate that part as well? It creates kind of data based on what we can make a decision. And this data we can show leadership. This number of test cases, this is the coverage, this is number of issues found, this is potential impact those issues could have. This is production problems that are post-deployment, that leak back. And this is the way we can reduce it, right? So you just sell it as a package.
I was just going to ask what you found works to actually make the efforts and the impact the QA is having more visible. It sounds like some of that's tied to metrics, but it also sounds like there's some advocacy that you're doing to try to demonstrate not just the effort that QAs are putting in, but the actual business impact. Can you talk a little bit more about any kind of tricks that you've found or ways of approaching that conversation that's actually helped visualize the impact that QAs had?
Yeah, it's probably the hardest selling point in my work because overall, QAs haven't been doing a good job to bring this work to increase their own visibility. So it's common in the industry that QAs are seen just monkey clickers or something, the special people who write something that's always failed, so whatever, slow down the process. What helps me to start this conversation with leadership and several companies is lost money. It's actually before that, it's really hard to convince. So unfortunately, the starting point is the biggest prod issue. So here's the problem. Here's how many affected customers. This is potential loss. You know what we need to do to prevent it going forward. Here's testing with the full process. And to keep it ongoing, you need to explain the found bugs before production. It doesn't have impact, but you can kind of try to figure a way of approximately impacted users and approximately based on average metrics that your company, I hope, collect. Also, you will have kind of approximate numbers. Even that could be eye-opening for people who manage the business, because they speak money, they see their own language.
So it's by actually tying issues in production to potential customer impact and getting as far as trying to estimate like the actual impact to revenue.
Yeah, well, we all know that why shift left happens, right? I hate this word. It was buzzing so much. But yeah, okay, like bugs in the beginning of the process are way cheaper than like on production hitting whoever is there. Like really many customers, damaging reputation. You're actually losing money if it prevents people from buying the product or completing the flow. So explaining even that simple dependency for some people is a new concept. And by repeating it for 15 years, I was like, everybody should know it by now. So when you start dig deeper, you show how much the production issues cost. People start to listen. Like there's maybe not direct managers. Sometimes in the big companies, direct managers or head of department, they have their own goals and they're not related with business somehow. But for mid and small companies, it makes sense. Like if you can display, here's how much money we potentially could lose if we don't do testing, if we don't improve our process, that helps a lot.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from, and your point about the fact that a lot of people don't take the time, because it takes time to actually demonstrate that, and a more holistic understanding of the business to be able to connect those dots and kind of be able to trace from product issues back to actual potential business impact to then also the solution, coming with that solution of like, here's what we can do to prevent that in the future, and here's what it's going to take from a resourcing perspective, from a time and process perspective. It takes time, but it sounds like that's been pretty influential that you've been able to make that time and make that case to management, because it sounds like it's helped your team be successful, right? I mean, it seems like this is something that's actually had a positive impact on the team. Can you talk a little bit about how that changes either the way that you're testing or the kind of initiatives that you take on in testing?
It does take time, but I don't see a way to reduce it that much. You know, I've seen situations then like we need to test. We don't have time to write test cases. We just need to go and click through. It might seem quicker on short term, but long term, it's just a mess. You don't know what's covered, what you already passed, like what were the use cases. Is there any gaps? Like what you didn't cover? It takes more time on the long term. It's a common problem. People don't think long term or strategically. Yes, manual testing takes time. Like research, thinking takes time. But it's really dangerous to fall into a situation when we don't have time to sharpen our knives. We need to cut.
That's a great analogy. I'm curious if there are any situations where you got to see the fruits of your labor, like where you felt like since you were so diligent about connecting these dots for folks and implementing the process this way, that you ended up either avoiding a major issue or having some kind of success. I'm curious if there's anything that comes to mind where it kind of helps illustrate why this can be so important and valuable.
Since I built the process from ground up here, probably not a good example, but when I was back in Amazon, general way to work, well, they don't test end to end. It was a funny stuff. Like they have 100 of microservices, and like we test like in contract way. We test immediate upstream and immediate downstream, and every team is doing the same thing, and we kind of covered, right? And when I came, I was like, well, in this way, we can test on mock data only, and mock data is not what I am confident in. So it took me quite a while to find a way how to build through end-to-end for our application. I needed to talk to about like 12 teams probably, I need to influence some of them to change the settings so test servers would match. And it took me over a month of manual regression through all this. It took so long because every day or every other day, we stumbled over some blockers because there were cases that nobody even thought about, nobody covered. The entire month, I was testing mostly upstream side, so it's not even our stuff. But after that, they realized that it actually makes sense because people were against the idea in the beginning, but I managed to insist on it. And we found a ton of bugs on those teams who thought they were so confident. And it's kind of Amazon, so you would expect the high quality of the work. But it was the most funny thing. Our immediate upstream was, let's say it's some page somewhere. They should have put a button with an entry to our stuff. And our development team wasn't responsible for this, so they kind of like disregard the whole thing entirely. And only my through regression found it. Because if I tested with mock data, I would never click the entry point because it's a part of end-to-end flow. And the button was not there. I was like, guys, this is amazing. was a pre-release regression. So we are about to release the stuff that nobody would see because the button is not there.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. To your point, the value of testing seems pretty clear.
Well, there's a ton of that stuff. In our company, we have third-party integrations, and some of them swear that they tested everything and everything works. But my team managed to find pretty critical stuff with this integration post. Those cases really highlight the value and importance of testing.
Maybe just to wrap up our conversation today, I'm curious if you were speaking with somebody on a QA team where they were feeling really frustrated about the lack of visibility into their efforts, and you were to give them some advice about where to get started with trying to make their value more clear to management, what advice might you share just to try to get that rolling and to try to make their efforts a little bit more clear and visible to upper management? Where would you advise them to start?
Speak their language. Ask them first about expectations, what good looks like. How would they understand that the application works correctly and users happy? What metrics would they use? Maybe you could use the same metrics and add your work to highlight the difference. But I think the most valuable is tied to money in some kind of way, because business usually is created to make money.
Whether that's a threat to revenue because the product's down, users can't use it, users are leaving, or even I've seen cases where folks have actually been able to tie product functionality to growing revenue also, not just the
that's true. And you can work with I don't know, ChatGPT to help to translate why latency, high latency, is dangerous. It's not clear. Okay, user still there, right? They can complete the flow. It's not critical. People on average agree to wait certain amount of seconds. Otherwise, they get tired and they drop. If I see that the website works really slowly, and it's not government website that I have to go through. If there any kind of is it shopping stuff, I'm okay, guys, I don't want to do this. That's it. So you losing the customers because of that. It helps to work with data team, with marketing team, or whoever is responsible for metrics, Google Analytics. It does feel like a second job sometimes. Sometimes what helps was finding time for that, creating tickets, and adding the tickets into the sprint. Yes, it's not feature work. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes management doesn't want to work on stuff that brings money, or they don't want to prevent money loss.
Yeah, that's a good point too. You're not going to win them all. And sometimes you might even need to translate differently depending on who you're talking to. Your immediate manager might have a certain set of metrics they're responsible for, but being ready to talk to some of those higher level business metrics to the folks maybe above them or lateral to them seems like it can go a long way to help getting you in a position to make that effort and impact more clear for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it may sound difficult. Well, because it is. So,
rightfully so.
I mean, nothing is easy always about it. But the thing is, actually working in a place where you're able to work in the way you like or on stuff that you're interested in with highly performing people who loves their work, this is the best option for you to spend 1/3 of your life. You can do nothing and still sit and suffer and complain and hate your work slowly more every day. It's just not a place that you probably want to go. So it's on you to try and change something first.
That's awesome. That's great wisdom to pass on. It can be really easy to lose sight of that in the midst of a lot of priorities and a lot of pressure to, get testing done for this release, get tests written for this sprint, et cetera. It can be hard to step back and get that perspective. So thank you so much for sharing that today. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I talked to a lot of people over the past 2 years during interviews, and guys, please learn the basic, learn how to write test case, what a good test case looks like, because it seems like after people get senior, they totally forget it. And without it, you can't bring this visibility of value up, because you can't tie it to the first layer of this boring theory. But it's very important.
It is amazing how important it is to keep those skills up, keep those foundations fresh. I appreciate that call out. Well, this has been great. Yulia, thank you again so much for making time to join us, and wishing you and the team continued success making QA visible, and good luck with the launch of the mobile app next year.
Thank you, Matthew. It was really nice to talk to you.